The NHL is terrified of the Florida Panthers right now after having such a hot start to the season, dominating every team they're facing. It's looking like a back-to-back cup run is on the books with Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart, and countless other players dominating the NHL. This team is one to watch out for and could definitely make that run again. And we're going to break it all down for you guys coming up on this episode of Hat-Trick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say that 91% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date on the latest NHL news, trades, rumors, everything happening around the league, make sure down below and hit that subscribe button. But Darius, with that said, I mean, the Atlantic Division, hasn't been the best this season, but there's one team that has been good in the Atlantic Division, which is the Florida Panthers. I know, Toronto's right behind them with 2 points, but, Florida is playing some great hockey, unlike the Toronto Maple Leafs at this point in time. Sorry about that, Darius. But there's one guy on this team who is playing the best hockey of his life right now, and that is Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, if you look at him right now, in 23 games, he has 30 points, 10 goals, 10 assists, and just earned the first star of the week in the last 3 games, having 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points, beating out Braden Point by, about 4 or 5 points here to earn that first star of the week. He has been on an absolute tear for this team, and it looks like nobody is going to stop Matthew Tkachuk going forward, Darius.
Yeah, this is, of course, a really good team. We know the Stanley Cup champions from last year. They want to repeat. The coach is hungry again. Paul Maurice, of course. Matthew Tkachuk is on a tear, right? And then there was also a report. They lost 4 games in a row, right? So things were kind of getting wobbly there. The Toronto Maple Leafs were making up some ground with some really good play. There was a report that when Toronto went in there last week to play them, that the Florida Panthers basically told some of the players, hey, you caught us on the wrong day, we're gonna crush you, and they did exactly that. So this is a team with the right mentality. They have a mentality that I don't think many teams in the league have right now, and one that's a little bit old school, that they're gonna come in, they're gonna crunch you. Sometimes the puck isn't even out there for them. They just want to play the right way and score goals, and they're not necessarily pretty all the time, but they can be. Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart with an amazing shot, right? Like one of the most underrated shots in the league. And the way the Buffalo Sabres are going right now, I'm sure that they were wishing that they would have held on to that player and a couple other players as well. But Sam Reinhart is lighting it up as well. So they're having a fantastic season again. And one thing I really admire about them is, again, like I kind of mentioned, sometimes there's no puck out there, right? You see a lot of other teams sometimes, especially with highly skilled players, trying to make skilled moves and all this and trying to get the highlight reel goals. Sometimes they just dump it in the corner, or they'll just put the puck to an area anywhere that's available, and they'll beat you to it. They'll beat you in the puck battles, right? And like 99% of the time, the Florida Panthers, any player on that team will beat you in a puck battle. So I really admire the way they play. They're continuing to do their thing. They're in a battle right there at the top of the Atlantic with the Toronto Maple Leafs for first. It looks like they might start pulling away with it just because of their play as of late and their mindset, but they are a scary team. The rest of the NHL is scared of this team because they have the mental mindset going into the postseason, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's no doubt about that. The Florida Panthers are probably one of the hottest teams in hockey right now. They're going to beat you up physically. They're going to beat you up mentally. This team is a force to be reckoned with, and they're looking very poised to go back-to-back. I mean, they have the confidence now after winning the Cup last year, and it shows on the ice. When you're watching this Florida team, they look confident. They look like they're going into every game knowing they're going to dominate you, and that's just the way it is right now. And like you alluded to, this guy, Sam Reinhart, Buffalo is punching the air right now because in 28 games, he has 19 goals, 19 assists for 38 points, leading this team in points, in goals, in almost everything because he is just playing some unreal hockey, putting the puck in the back of the net at ease, setting up his teammates at ease, and is really a big factor into why this team has been so successful. Like you said, when you have a guy who's just dominating, 2 guys who are just dominating in Tkachuk and Reinhart, it's going to be easy to win games when those players are putting up points in and out of every single game. But if we just move on here, the top 5 point getters doesn't stop at Reinhart and Tkachuk. Barkov having a great year back. He's always, been struggling with injuries over these last couple of years, and it's great to see him finally get back and be healthier this season, contributing a lot in the 28 points. He's one of the best defensive forwards in the NHL, I would say. And obviously Sam Bennett, I mean, Calgary's punching the air that they let this guy go, because he couldn't stay out of the box. I mean, he still, gets in the box a fair bit, but it's worth it now having him getting 26 points here so far this season. Carter Verhaeghe, a guy who's probably one of the most underrated in the NHL in my opinion. I think their forward core is so deep right now that there's no way that any team can stop their scoring.
And I mean, looking at the Florida Panthers, to me, they have a little bit of the Misfits vibe from Vegas their first year, where it's kind of like we're a bunch of pieces that came from other teams where we were supposed to be superstars. It didn't work out there. Now we all come together here with a common goal and we're playing really good hockey, right? Like it's crazy what confidence will do to a guy like, Carter Verhaeghe, for example, right? Who's been passed over by like Tampa, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the New York Islanders, all these teams. And he comes to Florida and he's playing really good hockey now. And he's a 40 goal guy every year, right? It's pretty crazy. And he just earned himself a really, really lucrative contract last year. And it's crazy what happens when you take a guy like Sam Bennett and you give him some purpose on a team. It's something to do, right? And obviously he's doing his thing. Team Canada came calling as well, right? So it's really special what they're doing right now, especially with Paul Maurice finally winning that Stanley Cup. But again, I think they're hungry to do it again. I think that, their play this season has shown that they're, like you mentioned, it was a good point with the confidence. They come into each game, there's no imposter syndrome. They know they're going to beat you up and they're going to score more goals than you. And they have a really good goaltender in net as well, who's found his game as well over the last couple of years. So they've been playing really well. And listen, with Austin Matthews, missing a big chunk of this season, there's a real chance that Sam Reinhart could win the Rocket Richard this year. I thought that he was very close last year, obviously, but Matthews had that insane season, but he has a real chance this year to, actually win it.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I think it would be great to see him kind of get that award and rub it in Buffalo Sabres fans' faces. I would love to see that, no doubt about it. And I really like that comparison you made about how all these guys, were pushed over and saying, hey, you're not worth nothing, comes to this team. They win a Stanley Cup. They're playing on real hockey. And one guy that is kind of on that same page is Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, this year, maybe having a little bit of a slower start than what people want from him. Having an 8.94 save percentage isn't bad, in my opinion, especially this day and age in the NHL. And when you're on a team, you're on a 12-5 record as a goalie, and you have an 8.94. Who cares? You got 12 wins. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter that much. But Spencer Knight has been a guy who's came in as well and played good. I mean, his record isn't as good as Bobrovsky's at a 5-4, but he is still a guy who's going to come in and give you some great confidence in between the pipes. But Bobrovsky, he's known as not a very good regular season guy. I would say he's more of like when the playoffs come, the switch turns and he's just an absolutely different goalie. He's a brick wall. Kind of reminds me of a Yaroslav Halak. Like when the playoffs come, he just turns it on. A switch flips in his mind, and he is locked in. And that's what you need. If he's not going to hold a 9-10 or a plus save percentage in the regular season, who cares if when he goes into the playoffs, he has a 9.34? Who cares? When your goaltending's that good, that's just the way it is. And the one thing that does concern me about this Florida team is the defense. I mean, if you look at this defense, past the top pairing, I mean, there's some guys here you've never heard of if you're not a Florida Panthers fan. And one thing that they definitely do need to improve on here this offseason, or not even offseason, this trade deadline to be Stanley Cup contenders is getting some big guys like a David Savard type players, like some of these big defensive defensemen that they will need going forward into a big playoff series. What do you think, Darius?
Yeah, I think that you're right on par there with what they need, the defense. I think even, some of the forward group, there was a lot of turnover, especially after last year. I was surprised how much of the team they kept together from the year before to then go on and win the Stanley Cup. But obviously coming into this year, it happens with a lot of teams after you win a Stanley Cup. There's a lot of turnover. So with the defense core, I would keep an eye on, David Savard, like you said. It sounds like he's going to be available. Marcus Pettersson from Pittsburgh, I would keep an eye on that as well. I think he's definitely going to be traded at some point leading up to the deadline. And even, Montreal could be an interesting trade partner for the Florida Panthers. Jake Evans as well. He can come in and, I think that the Montreal Canadiens, they would like to keep that player, but they can also get really good assets for that player as well. And he would add, another dynamic to this Florida Panthers team, or any team around the league, really, that's going into the playoffs. So I think that they're going to make another trade here. They're probably going to ride it out. They're playing good hockey still. But come playoff time, I think that they're going to need maybe one or two other pieces because there has been a lot of turnover.
Yeah, I definitely agree, but there's no way they're getting Jake Evans from us. I mean, he's probably my favorite player on the Montreal Canadiens right now, and you would love to have him in Florida. But I definitely agree. I definitely think they're going to be active buyers at this trade deadline, and it's going to be interesting to see who they go after. Definitely a few defensemen, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do go after some depth centers, maybe even depth wingers, seeing what they can do with the cap they have available. But we want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you think Florida's going to end at the top of the Atlantic, or do you think the Leafs are going to come back? Let us know down below in the comment section if you enjoyed this one. Leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel around the road for 8,000 before Christmas. So we appreciate you guys giving us a little bit of an early Christmas gift and getting us to that 8,000 subscribers. And if you want to check out a video we did earlier, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host KC alongside my co-host Darius. Keep your stick on the ice.